Imagine you're standing at a gas pump, right? You're
Yeah.
staring at that little digital screen, and the numbers are just blurring like faster and faster.
Oh, yeah, we have all been there.
And you get that distinct, just sinking feeling in your stomach because filling up your tank suddenly costs, $20 more than it did just a month ago.
Right.
You're standing there literally holding the nozzle, realizing you have absolutely no control over what that final number is going to be.
It is a profound feeling of helplessness.
Yeah.
You're basically watching your household budget drain away in real time,
Yeah, exactly.
and there is absolutely no action you can take in that moment to stop it, other than, just driving less.
Which isn't an option for most people. So welcome to our deep dive. Today our mission is to unpack an excerpt we've got our hands on titled Energy Independence, Breaking the Cycle of Oil Dependence.
It's a great read.
It really is. And this source tackles a deeply relevant, incredibly timely issue. We're going to look at exactly how global geopolitical turmoil directly impacts your wallet.
Which is something everyone is feeling right now.
Exactly. And we'll see how the very concept of energy independence is currently shifting. It's moving away from something politicians argue about in committee hearings and becoming a choice you can actually make for yourself.
To understand the mechanics of that shift, though, we really have to establish the factual backdrop provided in our text today.
Right. Set the scene for us.
So the source anchors its argument in the current reality of the global energy market. Specifically, it notes that the United States, Israel, and Iran are now in the fifth week of conflict.
Yeah. And to be clear, we are strictly looking at the economic reality as it's outlined in our source. We're not taking sides here.
Exactly. The text is using this ongoing conflict to illustrate a broader mechanism. This 5-week conflict has sent oil prices to multi-year highs.
Because of the strikes, right.
The text points out that Iranian strikes on Gulf refineries have severely rattled global energy markets, and that is causing immediate, undeniable pain at the pump for everyday drivers.
It's a perfect illustration of a macroeconomic shock hitting the microeconomy of, well, your household budget.
And it happens because the global supply chain for oil is just incredibly reactive.
Oh, for sure.
A strike on a refinery halfway across the world doesn't just make the evening news, it instantly alters the speculative futures market for oil.
Traders panic.
Exactly. Traders panic, the wholesale price of gasoline skyrockets, and within hours or maybe days, the owner of the gas station down your street is forced to pass that massive markup directly to you.
Because they have to cover their costs, too.
Right. And the demand for gas is highly inelastic. You still have to get to work, right?
You still have to buy groceries.
Exactly. So you just absorb the financial blow.
But here is the hook, and this is what makes our source text so compelling.
Yeah.
While most drivers are stressing over these gas prices, checking apps to find the cheapest station, rationing their trips, there is a growing segment of drivers who are completely insulated from this geopolitical fallout.
They are entirely unaffected.
Entirely. And those are the people driving electric vehicles.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because being tied to gasoline, it feels like having your personal monthly budget dictated by a highly volatile global stock market.
That's a really good analogy.
Right. You wake up, you check the news, you have to pray a crisis overseas hasn't ruined your commuting budget for the week.
Yeah.
But using locally generated electricity, that feels more like locking in a fixed-rate mortgage. You know exactly what it's going to cost month after month, regardless of what's happening on the other side of the planet.
What's fascinating here is how the source text elevates that dynamic. It doesn't just frame home charging as a nice financial perk.
Right.
It frames it as the foundational definition of individual energy independence. Let's look at the underlying mechanism for a second.
Please do.
The text points out that EV drivers charge at home for a fraction of the cost of gasoline. But the critical element isn't just that it's cheaper right now.
What is it then?
It's that the cost of electricity remains structurally stable because it is locally generated and heavily regulated. I want to dig into that stability for a second. Because someone might argue, wait, doesn't my local power plant run on natural gas or coal?
Sure.
Aren't those global commodities too?
They absolutely are, but the pricing mechanism is fundamentally different. When you buy gasoline, you are buying a product directly pegged to a global spot market.
Which fluctuates constantly.
By the minute, yeah. But when you buy electricity, you are buying from a regional utility. Those utilities have to go through public utility commissions to change their rates.
Oh, right, the red tape.
Exactly. It's a process that takes months or even years. Furthermore, a local power grid relies on a diverse mix of generation.
So it's not all coming from one place.
Right. The electricity flowing into your house right now might be a blend of a regional hydroelectric dam, maybe a wind farm a few counties over, a local natural gas plant, and maybe even solar panels on your own roof.
Wow, okay.
That diversity, combined with heavy regulation, buffers you against sudden international shocks.
That is a massive paradigm shift. I mean, every time conflict erupts in the Middle East, American consumers feel it locally.
Every single time.
Our source notes that this is a decades-long cycle. It's an economic trap we have been stuck in. We rely on a global commodity heavily concentrated in historically volatile regions.
So when instability hits, you pay for it.
The word trap is exactly right. When you drive a gas-powered car, your mobility is fundamentally tethered to the geopolitical stability of the entire world.
It's crazy when you think about it like
And
that.
it is. If one domino falls thousands of miles away, your cost of living goes up overnight. It takes a long time for global energy crises to significantly alter local electricity rates.
Whereas gas prices can literally change twice in one day at the corner station.
I've seen it happen. So the source is making a compelling argument here. True energy independence means severing that tether.
Absolutely.
Which brings up an obvious question. If EVs offer this incredible financial stability, if they completely protect your wallet from a 5-week-old war halfway across the globe, why hasn't everyone made the switch?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. If the economic logic is so sound, what is the friction here? If I look out my window, the highway isn't 100% electric.
Far from it.
So this transitions us from the cold, hard economics into something much messier, the psychological barrier. Because according to our text, the resistance isn't really about the math anymore.
No, it's not. Historically, the barrier to EV adoption was always the upfront cost.
They were just too expensive.
Exactly. The battery technology was prohibitively expensive for the average buyer. But the text argues that cost is no longer the primary hurdle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as prices have achieved parity with gas vehicles, the number one reason people hesitate today is fear.
Fear. Specifically, what the automotive industry calls range anxiety.
Yes. The source breaks this down into 3 distinct intertwined anxieties. First, the fear of running out of charge. Second, the fear of being stranded on the side of the road. And third, the broader systemic fear that our national infrastructure just isn't ready to support you if you, say, take a wrong turn, hit a detour, or just miscalculate your route.
Let's push back on this a little bit. Is this fear actually rational, or is it just the growing pains of adopting a new technology?
How do you mean?
Well, because when I read this, it immediately reminded me of the early days of smartphones. Do you remember when everyone first transitioned from those old brick cell phones where the battery would literally last for 10 days?
Oh, I miss those days.
Right, to the first touchscreen smartphones. We all had to learn an entirely new set of habits.
That's true. You couldn't leave the house without checking your percentage.
Exactly. People constantly panicked about being caught without a charger. You would go to a restaurant and immediately scan the baseboards for an outlet.
Yep, carrying spare, tangled cables in your pockets.
Yes, we had massive battery anxiety. But we didn't regress. We didn't throw our smartphones in the trash and go back to flip phones.
No, we adapted.
We just adapted our behavior. The battery tech got slightly better and the infrastructure caught up. Suddenly, there were charging pads in coffee shops, USB ports in airplanes, and power banks in every convenience store.
I see where you're going with this.
Isn't range anxiety just the automotive version of that early smartphone panic? Like, give it a few years, and the anxiety will naturally evaporate as infrastructure improves.
I'm going to stop you right there because while it's a really popular comparison, it severely underestimates the psychology of transportation.
Okay, fair enough. Why is it different?
The stakes are fundamentally different. Think about it. If your phone dies, you miss a text message, or you can't check social media, or maybe you're inconvenienced trying to find a restaurant.
Right, it's annoying, but you're fine.
Exactly. But if your car dies, you are physically stranded on a dark highway, potentially in dangerous weather, with your family in the back seat.
Oof, yeah.
A dead phone is an annoyance. A dead car is a visceral threat to your safety.
Okay, that is a fair distinction. The consequences of failure are much, much higher.
And the text points out that this psychological hurdle is incredibly powerful. It literally keeps people tethered to a volatile, expensive global oil market simply because the concept of a gas station feels safer.
The concept of it.
Right. Think about what a gas station represents in the human brain. It's a beacon.
Like a glowing sign in the night.
Exactly. Even if the gas station represents an economic trap where you're being gouged by global supply chain shocks, it represents a familiar, predictable safety net.
You know there is a pump at the next exit.
Right, it is highly visible. We don't have that same visceral trust in battery ranges yet because electricity is invisible and the charging stations aren't marked by towering signs glowing in the sky.
It is the comfort of the devil you know.
Precisely.
You would rather pay through the nose for foreign oil, effectively funding a global system you have no control over, than face the unfamiliar dread of a dead battery in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. And from a psychological perspective, if you want to solve a fear-based problem, you cannot just offer economic logic.
You can't just hand them a chart.
Right, you can't just slide a spreadsheet across the table proving electricity is cheaper per mile. Human beings don't make major behavioral shifts based solely on spreadsheets when safety is on the line.
They need to feel safe.
The market has to provide a psychological safety net. It has to invent a mechanism that specifically neutralizes the fear of being stranded.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because our source introduces the specific solution that the market has generated to counter this exact anxiety.
Yeah, this part is great.
The text introduces us to a service called Be Charged EV. It is described as the nation's largest emergency mobile EV charging network. The text literally calls it the AAA for the EV era.
It is a fascinating evolution in roadside assistance. It is a 247 roadside rescue service built explicitly and exclusively for electric vehicles.
And the crucial operational detail here, the thing that really caught my eye and explains how they are solving this, is the logistics of the rescue.
The way they actually do it.
Right. When we think of a dead car, we think of a tow truck. But Be Charged EV doesn't use tow trucks. If your battery runs low, a mobile unit comes to the driver to get them back on the road.
Which is huge.
They utilize vans equipped with high-capacity onboard battery systems. They pull up next to you, plug directly into your car, and transfer power. No tow truck is required. They just bring the power to you.
Think about the mechanics of that for a second. With a gas car, if you run out of fuel, someone can bring you a little red plastic gas can, right?
Exactly.
But you can't carry a bucket of electricity. Until recently, the only solution for a dead EV was to physically haul the heavy vehicle to a stationary charger.
Which is awful.
Be Charged EV is utilizing battery-to-battery fast charging technology. It's essentially a massive, high-voltage power bank on wheels.
Which completely changes the psychology of the breakdown. Think about what a tow truck actually means.
Oh, it's the worst.
A tow truck means defeat. It means your journey is over, your car is incapacitated, and you are being hauled away to a brightly lit, depressing garage or a closed dealership where you have to wait for hours.
It is humiliating and stressful.
Yeah.
The tow truck is the ultimate symbol of a failed trip. You are literally relinquishing control of your vehicle.
Exactly. But a mobile charger pulling up next to you, that feels totally different. It is just a pit stop.
Yeah.
You stay in your car, they plug in, and 20 minutes later, they've given you enough juice to reach your destination or the next permanent charging station. You drive away under your own power.
Under your own power.
Does eliminating the tow truck effectively eliminate the core fear of range anxiety?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that is exactly the psychological bridge this company is trying to build.
Okay.
Be Charged EV and services like it function as a necessary bridge for mass EV adoption. The source mentions they offer memberships and even home charging installations through their website, bechargedev.com.
Right. It's a whole ecosystem.
It's a subscription model, much like traditional roadside assistance.
Mm-hmm.
But their core value proposition isn't the electricity itself.
It's the peace of mind.
It is the peace of mind.
It's an insurance policy against your own anxiety.
Precisely. By eliminating the prospect of the tow truck, by removing that last lingering psychological barrier of being helplessly stranded and waiting for a flatbed, private companies are actively facilitating the broader societal transition away from foreign oil.
Wow.
They are solving the emotional problem so that everyday consumers feel safe enough to finally take advantage of the economic solution.
Which brings this entire conversation full circle.
It really does.
We started by talking about a 5-week-old war in the Middle East, refinery strikes, and spiking gas prices. Now we are talking about a roadside mobile charging service and a membership plan.
Quite the journey.
So what does this all mean? How do these two wildly different scales of information actually connect?
They connect through the fundamental redefinition of a very powerful phrase, energy independence.
Okay.
For decades, going all the way back to the oil embargoes of the 1970s, if you heard a politician talking about energy independence on the news, they were talking about national policy.
Right, big macro stuff.
Exactly. They were talking about offshore drilling rights, maintaining strategic petroleum reserves, and complex international trade agreements. It was massive, macro-level geopolitical concept.
And as a private citizen, you had absolutely zero control over it.
None at all. You just watched the news and hoped the people in power figured it out.
But the source argues that real energy independence doesn't happen in the halls of Washington, D.C. anymore. It happens in your driveway.
Yeah.
It happens in the choices you make as a consumer. Every single EV on the road equals one less vehicle dependent on the global oil supply chain.
That's right.
And every B-charged member is someone who has effectively insulated themselves from worrying about whether an overseas conflict will affect their ability to commute to work or pick up their kids from school or just afford their daily life.
Notice how effectively the source text positions this dynamic. It takes a massive geopolitical event, this 5-week overseas crisis, and frames it not just as an economic tragedy, but as a wake-up call.
A wake-up call.
It effectively positions a consumer product, an electric vehicle, alongside a roadside membership service as a direct antidote to geopolitical helplessness.
That is wild to think about.
When you are standing at that gas pump, watching the numbers spin out of control because of a conflict you have nothing to do with, you feel like a victim of circumstance.
You really do.
This source is telling you that you don't have to be. You can literally buy your way out of the global oil trap.
It is a brilliant reframing of the narrative. It takes national security and turns it into an empowering, highly localized individual choice.
Absolutely.
What car do you drive? What roadside membership do you hold? How do you power your home? You can literally opt out of the oil market's volatility. The source makes it clear that the future of worry-free, insulated transportation is already here. You just have to choose to participate in it.
And the underlying warning in the text suggests that waiting is a mistake.
Don't wait for the next crisis.
Right. The text urges drivers not to wait for the next inevitable oil crisis to make the switch, because the source argues this decades-long cycle is fundamentally inescapable as long as we rely on oil.
It's never going to stop.
No, the conflicts will continue to flare up, the supply chains will continue to be disrupted, and the prices will inevitably continue to spike. The only way to permanently break the cycle is to change the fuel source entirely.
Let's briefly recap the ground we've covered today. We started by looking at a real-time 5-week global conflict that is currently sending gas prices surging at your local pump.
Yep.
We explored the stark mechanical contrast between that volatile global domino effect and the stable, highly insulated reality of the local electricity grid.
The fixed mortgage versus the stock market.
Then we dug into the friction like why everyone hasn't switched yet, unpacking the very real psychological barrier of range anxiety and why a dead car feels so much more terrifying than a dead smartphone.
It's all about the stakes.
And finally, we looked at how the market is responding. We explored how mobile networks like B-charged EV use battery-to-battery transfers to eliminate the dread of the tow truck, attempting to move the power of energy independence directly into your hands.
It represents a profound shift in how we power our lives. It demonstrates that the transition to new technology is driven just as much by the desire for psychological peace of mind as it is by simple economics.
We want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today, something that builds on everything we've unpacked about decoupling from global systems.
Okay, let's hear it.
If true energy independence means we no longer rely on a centralized, highly vulnerable global supply chain, what happens to the very concept of a gas station in the future?
Oh, that's interesting.
Think about it. For a century, our entire physical landscape has been built around the idea that you must go to a specific, centralized location to retrieve fuel. You have to navigate to a corner lot, stand outside, and use a public pump. But if you can charge your vehicle while you sleep at home, and if emergency power now comes directly to you wherever you are on the road via a mobile service, are we witnessing the end of having to go to get fuel altogether? Is the era of the fueling destination coming to an end?
This raises an important question about infrastructure, really. If power becomes decentralized and mobile, it completely rewrites how we design our cities, how we plan our road trips, and how we think about the physical footprint of transportation.
It really does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the information around you, keep looking for those deeper connections, and we will catch you next time.